Welcome back to History Facts and Mysteries. Today, we embark on a fascinating journey through one of the most iconic and transformative eras in human history, the Middle Ages. This period, spanning roughly from the 5th to the late 15th century, is often remembered for its castles, knights, and cathedrals, but life during medieval times was far more complex and multifaceted. It was an age of survival and struggle, creativity and conquest, faith and transformation. In this video, we'll uncover the layers of medieval life, from the feudal system and daily life in the villages to the grandeur of courtly traditions and the intellectual revival of the late Middle Ages. Along the way, we'll explore the key events, figures, and ideas that shaped this extraordinary era. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to History Facts and Mysteries and turn on notifications for more deep dives into the past. Let's step into the world of the Middle Ages. The dawn of the Middle Ages. The fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 CE marked the beginning of the Middle Ages. With the collapse of centralized authority, Europe entered what has been romantically, but inaccurately, called the Dark Ages. This was a time of fragmentation, with former Roman provinces breaking into smaller kingdoms ruled by warlords and chieftains. The lack of a unifying force led to a patchwork of cultures and governance. Yet, amidst the chaos, the Christian Church rose as a stabilizing institution. Monasteries became centers of learning and preservation, safeguarding ancient texts that would later fuel the Renaissance. One lesser-known detail about this period is the role of Irish monks. Isolated from the turmoil on the continent, they copied and preserved invaluable Roman and Greek manuscripts, ensuring that the knowledge of the classical world was not entirely lost. The feudal system, a pyramid of power. As the Middle Ages progressed, the feudal system became the backbone of medieval society. This hierarchical structure tied together kings, lords, vassals, and peasants in a web of mutual obligations. At the top stood the king, who granted land to powerful nobles in exchange for loyalty and military service. These nobles, in turn, offered protection and parcels of land to their vassals, who managed the estates and ensured their security. At the bottom of the pyramid were the peasants and serfs, who worked the land and provided food for everyone else. Life for these common people was harsh and labor-intensive. Most lived in small villages, toiling in fields from dawn to dusk. Yet, community and tradition played vital roles in their survival. Festivals, religious ceremonies, and seasonal celebrations brought moments of joy and unity to otherwise grueling lives. Did you know that some serfs were able to buy their freedom or escape their feudal obligations by fleeing to growing towns and cities? The saying, "City air makes you free," reflected this opportunity for mobility, however rare it might have been. Castles and knights, the symbols of medieval power. Castles are among the most enduring symbols of the Middle Ages. These fortified structures were not just military installations but also centers of administration and symbols of the lord's authority. Inside, the lord and his family lived in relative luxury, surrounded by servants, courtiers, and knights. Knights, meanwhile, were the armored warriors of the medieval battlefield. Trained from boyhood, they followed a code of chivalry that emphasized honor, loyalty, and protection of the weak. However, the reality of knighthood was far less glamorous than the romanticized version often depicted in literature. Battles were brutal, and knights frequently served as enforcers for their lords, collecting taxes or suppressing revolts. One fascinating detail is the use of tournaments as both training and entertainment. These events allowed knights to showcase their skills in mock combat, often drawing large crowds. However, they could be incredibly dangerous. Deaths and serious injuries were not uncommon. The influence of religion. Religion permeated every aspect of medieval life. The Catholic Church was the most powerful institution in Europe, influencing not only spiritual matters but also politics, education, and art. The Pope wielded immense authority, often rivaling that of kings and emperors. Monasteries and convents were hubs of religious devotion and intellectual activity. Monks and nuns copied manuscripts, brewed medicinal potions, and served their communities. Pilgrimages to sacred sites like Canterbury, Santiago de Compostela, and even Jerusalem were common, and relics of saints were venerated as sources of divine intervention. The Church also initiated the Crusades, a series of religious wars aimed at reclaiming the Holy Land from Muslim rule. These campaigns had profound consequences, including increased trade and cultural exchange between Europe and the Middle East. Daily life, from peasants to nobles. Life in the Middle Ages varied dramatically depending on one's social class. For peasants, survival was a daily struggle. They lived in simple wooden homes, often shared with livestock, and subsisted on bread, porridge, and vegetables. Meat was a luxury reserved for special occasions. For nobles, life was far more comfortable but not without its challenges. Noble women, for example, managed households, arranged marriages, and served as regents when their husbands were away. Education was limited, but some noblewomen, like Eleanor of Aquitaine, played significant roles in shaping medieval politics and culture. The High Middle Ages, a time of growth. The High Middle Ages, 11th to 13th centuries, were marked by growth and innovation. The population of Europe nearly doubled, thanks to agricultural advancements like the heavy plow and crop rotation. Towns and cities expanded, and trade networks flourished. The construction of Gothic cathedrals like Notre Dame and Chartres showcased the era's artistic and engineering achievements. These towering structures were not only places of worship but also statements of wealth and faith. Universities also emerged during this time, with institutions like Bologna, Oxford, and Paris laying the groundwork for modern education. The rediscovery of ancient Greek texts, often transmitted through the Islamic world, sparked a revival of learning known as scholasticism. The Late Middle Ages, crisis and transformation. The Late Middle Ages, 14th to 15th centuries, were a time of crisis and change. The Black Death, a devastating plague that swept through Europe, killed an estimated one-third of the population. This catastrophe upended social structures, leading to labor shortages and a questioning of traditional hierarchies. The Hundred Years' War between England and France showcased the rise of professional armies and new military technologies like the longbow. Figures like Joan of Arc emerged as symbols of resistance and national identity. By the end of the Middle Ages, the Renaissance was on the horizon. The printing press, invented by Johannes Gutenberg, would soon revolutionize the spread of knowledge, paving the way for the modern era. Thank you for joining us in exploring the Middle Ages here at History Facts and Mysteries. This era, often seen as a time of castles and knights, was in reality a complex and dynamic period that shaped the foundations of our modern world. The Middle Ages gave us the seeds of democracy, the architecture that continues to inspire awe, and the literature and ideas that enrich our understanding of humanity. It was a time of struggle and survival, but also one of creativity, innovation, and profound transformation. As we've seen, the people of the Middle Ages were not so different from us. They faced challenges, sought meaning, and strived for a better future. Their legacy lives on in our institutions, our art, and our stories. This period of history teaches us that even in times of upheaval, human ingenuity and determination can lay the groundwork for progress. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to subscribe to History Facts and Mysteries and turn on notifications. What aspect of the Middle Ages fascinates you the most? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep uncovering the mysteries of history. The past is full of lessons, stories, and wonders waiting to be discovered. Each chapter of history holds keys to understanding who we are and where we're headed, making the study of history not just an exploration of the past, but a guide for the future.